and you had all of these services done and never once knew how much it was going to cost you. And then they could literally just
Yep.
charge you whatever they wanted to charge you. And then on the back end, you get this very large bill, even when you have insurance. It still boggles my mind that we have allowed this system to be built.
Welcome to Healthcare Liberty Labs with Tiffany Ryder, where we teach you what they don't want you to know about healthcare.
I know how much my, I would need to have in savings if I needed a hysterectomy and I needed my uterus taken out for some reason, right? I
Mhm.
know how much it would cost if I got pregnant.
Yeah.
I know all of these things. And the reason I know all of these things, I believe, is because of you. Because you have put together a plan and you guys are putting the info out there and making it really understandable and simple and transparent. And I just freaking love it. So now I'm going to shut up. And if you could just introduce yourself, tell us whatever, you're willing to share about what you do at CrowdHealth and sort of a little about your background, because I don't know how you end up working somewhere like this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm Bridget Babione. I'm head of operations at CrowdHealth. And I've actually been in this cash pay patient crowdfunding health share space for about 9 years now. So CrowdHealth was not my first go at using an insurance alternative, something that was not traditional medical insurance. But I was super excited when an opportunity at CrowdHealth opened up because I truly believe that CrowdHealth has figured out the way for doing this in the most successful way possible. For doing this in the way that is going to last the longest. And not only that, but we have a really amazing team that is like the absolute best energy. So.
No arguments there. What do you mean last the longest?
Yeah, so I think that this is funny. Sure, I say that, and then this is where we go. The reality about crowdfunding is that there is, only so much money within the crowd to help for medical bills, right? So if we have a situation where the members are needing more help from the crowd than the crowd is prepared to give, then that financial structure starts to break down if that happens over a long term, right? Or the prices just have to keep going up and going up and going up, which we see in insurance, but for other reasons. And so there have to be things that help patients truly act like consumers of medical care, right? Insurance does not incentivize us to act like a consumer of medical care, but it is a service. It's a service that we're paying for. Even if we have insurance, we're paying for the service because we're paying our premiums, right? And then
Of
our
course, right?
deductibles,
It's a
and then
financial
our
product.
copays, right?
Yes. It's
All
like
that stuff.
budget billing for my
Yes.
electric company, right? Like I know it's going to be X amount of dollars, but guaranteed if I use more energy than
Yes.
that, they're
Yes.
going to find a way to recoup that.
Exactly.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure.
And so I think that the CrowdHealth product is the best at supporting the patient first, and particularly the patient-provider relationship, so that patients really are the ones in control of their healthcare. But it also has to incentivize all those patients to be smart consumers. And in my opinion, CrowdHealth is the best at doing that. So,
So that is actually, and I know I'm like interrupting your story. I'm like, introduce yourself, and then here are my 60 questions. But like that as a consumer is exactly what I was looking for. And I didn't think it existed on the market. I feel like just from my personality, and I tend to attract people who are similar, like I came out just like middle fingers up, like everybody leave me alone. Like I want to do it all by
mhm.
myself. And I feel like healthcare is too complex and um too full of misaligned incentives
Mhm.
for even someone like me who is trained in medicine to be able to do
Yeah.
that. And CrowdHealth had the promise of no, like we got your back. Like we'll help you do all the things you want to do and stand up for yourself, make the decisions you want to make. So it's really cool to hear you say that not only are you able to do that, but you're also able to do that in a way that supports the company health and keeps me from having to pay more money every
Right.
month.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the goal, right? Is that no one ends up in financial distress because of medical bills, right? That's why people buy insurance. That's why people join CrowdHealth. But that they don't end up in financial distress every month having to pay for the help to not end up in
Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
distress.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think people are surprised when they see how much it is. I got a text from a wonderful, wonderful friend who happens to be in the industry of health insurance. And this person said, well, hey, I'm like choosing my new benefits or whatever with a position I'm taking. And I'm just not happy. I'm just not happy. How does Crowd Health work? And so I tell this person like what's going on and how much it's going to be for the family
mhm.
size and everything. And I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe this is not what they expect, whatever. And they came back to me and they were like, oh my gosh, that's half. That's
Yeah.
half the cost of the premium, the family premium at this for these crappy benefits.
Hmm.
Right. And they signed up.
Yeah.
This episode brought to you by CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth helps you find awesome doctors, negotiate your bills, and fund those bills through our peer-to-peer funding platform. For less, welcome to an easier way to pay for healthcare.
I mean,
And I thought, this is like the message that I try to get across. I'm like, I'm not supporting Crowd Health because I think like if there's something in it for me. It's
right.
like, well, there is something in it for
Yeah.
me as a member, right?
Yes.
And when you see so many like doctors and clinicians and industry insiders who are like, yeah, we know this is a scam. So what else is out there?
Yeah.
And they are choosing Crowd Health. I feel like it's a
Absolutely.
pretty good sign.
I mean, it's amazing. I know members who have turned down the health benefit through their employer because they would prefer to stay with
Yeah.
CrowdHealth. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're like, that actually makes more financial sense
Yeah.
than taking this, health benefit. So on both fronts, it is amazing how much freedom is offered to you as the patient, but also to the doctor when
Yeah.
you're cash pay. Because now they aren't working around insurance rules. Now they really can think about what is best for the patient. What does this patient actually need? They can invite the patient into the decision-making process instead of this whole, well, the insurance won't reimburse unless I do A first and then B. So even though I don't think A is necessary, this is the way we have to do it, right?
Yeah.
Now you have a very different conversation with the patients. And this is the good news. There are doctors out there who want to do this, who recognize this and want to do this. And they're eager to work with cash pay patients, right? And so these are some of the resources that CrowdHealth has to help the members, especially when they come to us and they let us help them find these doctors that are already aware of these things, that are already eager to work with cash pay patients, to really let the patient drive their healthcare and to be that support, to be that amazing resource for patients,
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. On top of the fact, like I remember we had a member come to us and she had a baby, normal hospital delivery, and she sent us in her hospital bill after the fact. And we noticed that despite the fact that as a cash pay patient, they were still using insurance coding, which is very, very normal. We noticed that they had a billing error, a coding error on there, that they were charging her for 3 things that they cannot put together and charge. If you charge for one of those, you can't charge for the other 2, right?
Yeah.
She would have never known that. We spend all day, every day in medical bills. So it's something that we're very familiar with. And it was a simple phone call. She just called and said, hey, I've been told that you can't actually bill me for all 3 of these charges. If you're going to bill me for this one, you can't bill me for those 2. And they took it off just like that, like snap, and it was done.
Of course,
and
right.
her bill was significantly cheaper.
It's totally true. It's totally true. So, we talk a lot on social media about like, hey, the easiest thing you can do is ask for the itemized bill,
Mhm.
right? And that is the easiest thing you can do, and everyone should be doing that. But I think it's sort of surprising. It was surprising to me at first, and you hear about it from people in the comments and people who are watching these videos who say like, yeah, but like, isn't my insurance company like looking for stuff like that. So the example you just used, I don't know this patient. I have no idea
Hmm.
what you're referring to, but I can say that like maybe something like a laceration repair. So like a cut repair could be like, oh, that's $500 for this size, right? Well, they can't charge you for a cut repair and then also separately charge you for like lidocaine and stitches, like the actual like
Yes.
supplies, and then also the person who sewed you up, and also like, so it's like it's double charging, but it doesn't look
Exactly.
like double charging.
Hmm.
But like when you ask for the itemized bill, you have to review all of those
You
things.
do.
You have to know all of those things.
Hmm.
And thankfully CrowdHealth is, really good at doing that. But I think the other piece to know is that if I have sewed up many like, cooking injuries and, dog bites and like all of this stuff, like I don't know what they're billing. I
Right.
know that I have to put a bunch of stuff in the computer that I don't want to put in the computer, but
Hmm.
I have no idea. I have no idea if they charged you 6 times for the same thing, if they charged you for things I didn't do. I have no idea. And I will never see those bills. And
Hmm.
so your doctor's not looking out for you.
Right.
The billing company is paid to literally look at my note and then bill maximally, because they're playing this game where they're like, well, the big bad insurance company is not going to pay us, so we're going to show them. And so, like, everyone is being like on their worst behavior. Not
Hmm.
your clinician, hopefully, right? But like, it's not set up for things to work fairly or reasonably.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not. And the hospitals and the insurance companies want it, and actually it's set up to work exactly how the hospitals and the insurance companies want it to work, honestly. um,
Mhm.
they are making maximum profits on this system that is bankrupting everyday Americans, unfortunately. I mean, it's crazy that of the you know tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. I don't know the exact number, but of Americans that have to declare bankruptcy every year, the majority of that is due to medical debt. And the majority of those people have health insurance. Like
Yeah.
that's another thing that's just wild, that we've been led to believe that, well, if you don't have health insurance, you're really screwed. But if you have health insurance, you're fine, except the fact that the majority of people who declare medical bankruptcy have health insurance. It's just wild.
Yeah. And as someone who is, I guess, now a marketing sort of communications enthusiast, I'm just like in awe. Like, how did you manage to get that message across, as
Right.
evil as it is, right? Like, you have managed to completely gaslight hundreds of millions of people
Mhm.
into believing that health insurance is somehow a security blanket that actually protects you financially. And, I have a lot of friends who are in insurance, and they like to point out that I'm wrong about this, but I feel like just that data really speaks for itself,
Yeah.
right? Like that says so much. And I think there's also an argument that I've heard from other crowd members, like when we were in Vegas and recently, and had that big dinner with
Mhm.
I don't know, 75 of our members. Like, it was so cool to hear people say like, yeah, and it's easier for me to put a little bit of money aside. It's easier for me to have an emergency fund and feel confident that I can handle things when they come up, because I'm not paying these crazy outrageous premiums, and my crowd
Mhm.
health, commitment is so much lower, and yada 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 yada. But I
Yep.
think that like that those are all things that they have a human cost associated with them, right? Like, this isn't about dollars and cents. It's about like a mom being able to sleep at night.
Yes.
And I think that is what fuels the passion of, our team, right? The Crowd Health team, but also like the members that are out there beating the streets saying they got to check this out.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you were talking earlier about having to have had a procedure done.
Mhm.
And it's actually a very common procedure. A lot of people have to do it, but the thing that's interesting about it is that it can go both ways, where sometimes it's an emergency procedure because someone
Yes.
shows up in the ER and it ends up in an emergency. But then sometimes it's a situation that's caught and you can plan it, right? And, we have the resources to manage both, right? So if a member ends up in the ER and they have to stay overnight for a couple of nights because they need this emergency surgery, our encouragement is to never pay anything while you're in the hospital, especially if you go in through the ER, or if you're in the ER and all it is an ER visit, never pay anything. And that comes back to that bill conversation we were having, because
Yes.
you don't know that they're going to charge you correctly. They're going to try to get you to pay something. They're going to try to get you to pay anything. And they're going to promise you big discounts, as if you would just pay now and you'll get this big discount, except that you have no idea if they're charging you for the correct thing and or what they're charging you, right? They might make you think that paying them $2,500 right now for an ER visit is an amazing steal. If you don't
Yep.
pay this now, we're going to charge you $40,000. Except that you get the bill and you realize that ER visit should have been $800, not
Yeah.
$2,500, right?
Yeah.
They sold you on a lie and a discount. But if you have a situation where it's not emergent, but you know you need this procedure, we have those resources to help you shop. And I think that one thing, and maybe this isn't as big of an issue for people looking at CrowdHealth as I think, but I think that one of the hurdles could be that don't cash pay patients have to pay for non-emergency stuff at the point of care. Like, you would have to pay for it when you get it, right? And some surgeries are not cheap. And how am I going to pay for that and then get help from the crowd afterwards? And we actually have the ability to allow the crowd to help you before the procedure. And then you have the money that you need and you pay for it the day of your surgery when you show up, like you do for most other services, I might add. And you're able to move forward with the care that you need. So
I didn't realize that. That's exciting.
Yeah. So yes, obviously you need your either $500 member commitment or your $3,000 pregnancy commitment, but you don't have to have a credit card with a large balance, or you don't have to have, a bunch of money in savings in case you need some surgery, because you've got to pay for it first and then wait for the crowd to help on the back end. The crowd can help you before, so that you go in having what you need to get the services that you need.
Something you said, I don't know, I wanted to at least provide some context. Like, I 100% that hospitals are sneaky and sort of pushy and do all of these things, but just to give some perspective into what those people who are like, sign this, sign this, sign this, sign this, why they might be doing that. I think there are a couple things that go unseen. And one of them is that the hospital administration sort of like feeds you this line. Like, we get this line, like I used to have to go to these billing seminars. So like you would have to go so you could learn how to like write your note better so that we could get more money, right? And that whole story, the narrative is, look, you work in a rural ER because you care about people. You know who doesn't care about people? The big bad insurance company that, is posted up somewhere in Columbia, South Carolina, or, New York City. And if we allow them to discount our work, this hospital is going to close. Patients are going to die. And this is where we're going to be, right? So like, it's like every step of the way there's sort of, and maybe there's some truth to that, but
Absolutely.
Also every part of the story, someone is being manipulated into believing what they need to believe so that like the stock prices for Blue Cross continue to go up, right? Like,
well,
that just happens to be true.
Yes.
So like the person who's talking to you probably isn't, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt trying to take advantage of you.
Absolutely.
Right? They're just like, well, shoot, we have to do this. And also they're thinking, well, even if they think, well, this hospital is full of it, well, they're thinking, well, this hospital is going to charge you $40,000 until you're bankrupt and you have nothing. So like, if I can give it to you for $8,000, like just pay up.
Yeah. I think it's so very true. And it's something that we run into whenever we negotiate bills. right? So if someone does
Mm,
have an ER visit, our encouragement is don't pay anything. Get the bill, send it to us. We'll review it. We only negotiate bills that are inflated. If the bill is already a fair market rate, we're not going to negotiate that. We want providers, hospitals, physicians, all the different providers to get paid fairly for the services that they provide. But if it is inflated, then we go to negotiate it. And the conversations that we have with people in the billing departments of hospitals, where
mm,
we get to talk to them about fair market rates, because we do. We look at what they're charging, we compare it to Medicare or Medicaid, of course, but then we also pull what the other hospitals in the area are charging or hospitals in the nearby city.
hmm.
And we send them this information. And when they start seeing that, you can almost see the light bulb. I mean, it's a phone call, so you can't see anything, but you can almost see
Yeah.
the light bulb turning on in their brain that they're like, oh my gosh, wow, we aren't actually offering a good price for this, you know?
Oh,
And
because
it's
how would
amazing.
they know,
It's
right?
just like you were saying, it's the narrative they've been told,
Yeah.
and that's what they've been operating off of. And they didn't realize that, oh, there might actually be some other information out there that could
Mm.
cast a different light on this. Yeah.
Tell me, tell me a little bit more about these forms that you sign when you go to the ER because everybody wants to know about the forms and what am
Yes.
I supposed to do, and they're on an iPad. I can't cross things out. So like
Yeah.
walk me through what these forms are, what I should be paying attention to, what I should and shouldn't do from the perspective of it's an emergency, I couldn't plan. Here we are.
Absolutely. And I think that the first thing I would say to everyone is don't stress over these forms. Don't stress over these forms. Yes, we do give our members some instruction on how best to handle them if they can. But the reality is this is an emergency situation. And the most
Mhm.
important thing is that you get the care that you need or that, you get the care for your family member that they
Mhm.
need. So my first encouragement is don't stress. Don't stress over the forms. However, if you can, on the financial form, and it looks different at every hospital, but essentially it's the one where you're saying that you're responsible for the cost of this care. I consent to pay for this care because you're a cash pay patient. There's not an insurance company to charge. Um, it's really simple. If it's on an iPad, instead of signing your name, just sign won't sign. Like, no one's going to even pay that close of attention. If
That's
they do,
true. Yeah.
good for them, but like no one is. However, if you don't know about this and you're watching this after having gone to the ER and you did sign your name, you did not sign your life away. Believe it or not, you did not sign your life
Okay.
because there was no in that financial consent form there was no agreement on price, and when there's no agreement on a specific price there is an understood expectation. This is particularly being enforced through the Consumer Federal Protection Board right now.
Mm.
So we hope that they stay in business.
Yes.
um,
Tell
but
Doge to look
yeah.
away from that one.
Yes. But if there's no like agreement on a specific price or a price range, then a reasonable cost is what is expected to be
Mhm.
offered. And so we use the terminology from the CFPB in our bill negotiations when we're having these conversations around coming to an agreement on a fair price. And again, I want to stress like when we're negotiating bills, we aren't trying to get the lowest price possible, believe it or not. We're trying to get a fair price for all parties involved, right? That's what makes free markets amazing, is that the cost and the goods are good on both sides. Yeah, you're not signing your life away. They do not actually get to charge you whatever they want to, and you have to pay it. But it does help when you like from the beginning sort of
Yeah.
acknowledge that, yeah, you don't get to just charge me anything. And you just simply put won't sign on there.
Well, that's pretty easy, right? Because I've seen, all sorts of different guidance on that. And then, yeah, the iPad question was the latest one
Yeah.
where they said, well, how am I supposed to cross things out when it only
Hmm.
lets me sign here?
Yep.
So that's helpful to know. The next question is, what happens if I need an ambulance? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, if you are in a situation where an ambulance is needed, your focus should be on getting the care that you need, right? Again, in emergency situations, there should be absolutely no concern over shopping for medical care. The concern should be over getting the care that you need. So if there is a situation where an ambulance is needed, just move forward with getting the care that you need. We can help you with the bills on the back end. I think the takeaway would be for any member in that situation is once you start receiving your bills, just don't pay anything. Send them to CrowdHealth first so that we can help you review them, make sure they're fairly priced, negotiate them if they're not, and then the crowd can help you with them. But if it's emergent, if they need an ambulance, just focus on getting the care that you need at that point. Yeah.
So I asked that question because I think for me, when I first declined my insurance and like took this rogue dissident way,
Yes.
I didn't really see the difference because I am technically uninsured as a CrowdHealth member.
Yeah.
But I didn't really get it. Like
Right.
I was still thinking about everything like as if I didn't have insurance because I technically don't.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is, it feels to me as a member
Mm-hmm.
like there are different buckets, right? So,
Yes.
for example, I have seen people, um, I in urgent care, obviously not in the ER because they're already there. But
Mm-hmm.
in urgent care, I have seen people who are uninsured and are not Crowd Health members,
Mm-hmm.
and they look at everything a little bit differently, and it's honestly, as a clinician, it's very disturbing to me because we would have these patients who I'm like, Mrs. So and so, your oxygen level is 80% and I am going to call the ambulance right
Right.
now. And she's like, oh God, please no. Call my daughter instead.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a $3,000 bill, I'm not going to be able to heat my home this winter, right? Like, and
Dang.
so like, as a clinician, I obviously I have to call the ambulance,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But you look at situations like this and it's horrific that people are really in this situation where they're not, I mean, it's not even that they're ignoring the fact that this is a life or death situation. It's that the number of situations where they could potentially have their life destroyed are
Mm-hmm.
many,
Yeah.
right? And I think that is a really important point when we talk
Totally.
about something like crowd health, because is it guaranteed? Well, no. Well, we already talked about how insurance doesn't really guarantee me any financial assurances either. But I think in stark contrast to being uninsured with no plan,
Mm-hmm.
uninsured with crowd health,
Yes.
there is a plan. And if I'm worried that something horrible is happening to a member of my family, like
Right.
I just don't care. I
Right.
don't care what the crowd thinks about calling 911 because that's what I'm going to do, because that's what I would
Absolutely.
actually want a fellow crowd member to do. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say, girl, I got you.
Right.
We're gonna
Seriously.
pay for that. And I
Exactly.
think that's like it's such a huge difference, that I don't think that every uninsured person necessarily considers.
Absolutely. It's huge. And that's where, um, you know, I hate to say peace of mind, but or maybe confidence is a better word. Like you are accessing your medical care. And while, yes, you are uninsured, you do not have traditional health insurance, you are not alone, right?
Yes.
And so you know
Oh,
that you're going to have help with these medical bills. So you can get the care that you need when you need it. And you're right, there are different buckets. So when it comes to emergency care, the importance is to get the care that you need
mhm.
as quickly as possible. Obviously, it's important to make sure it is truly an emergency, not,
Sure.
unnecessarily an emergency, but I'm going to trust the audience to be smart enough to know that.
Oh, I'm
Um,
going to interrupt you actually before we go further.
okay.
How about I have chest pain. I think I'm having a heart attack. I
Hmm.
call the ambulance. I go to the ER. They do an EKG. They do a $10,000 workup and they say, sweetie, you had a panic attack.
Hmm.
Is Crowd Health going to tell me that that wasn't an emergency?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I just
Absolutely
wanted to
not.
clarify.
CrowdHealth is going to be thrilled that it was just an anxiety attack with you. Like seriously, I mean, no one wants anxiety that bad, but
Yeah.
like, we're going to be thrilled with you that it was not truly a cardiac
Yeah, of course.
situation.
I love that answer. Okay.
Yes, yes. We're going to negotiate the bills, and it's and you're going to know next time. Believe it or not, I have actually gone to the ER for that exact reason and been told that exact thing. Now, I wasn't on CrowdHealth at the time; it was about 15 years ago when I was much younger.
Yep.
And it scared me. It scared me to be having the symptoms that I was having. And it was like, okay, I either go to the ER and they tell me that I'm fine, or there's the very real possibility that I don't go to the ER and I die. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm going to the ER and I'm going to be maybe told I'm fine and realize I didn't actually need to go. But if those are my two options,
This is how we learn, and
yeah,
this is how we take
exactly.
care of our bodies when we
Exactly.
don't know what
When we
better to
don't know
do.
what's happening. Yes,
Yeah, of
exactly. Yeah.
course.
But the other bucket is understanding that now you are accessing your care as a consumer of medical services and
Mhm.
medical goods. And so when an emergency is not at play, you are now shopping. You're shopping for your medical care just like you shop for a million other things in your life.
Yep.
And that is different. That's very, very different than going to the doctor, being told what next doctor to go to, being told where to show up at a hospital. And cost never comes into the conversation, right?
Mhm.
And then on the back end, you get this very large bill, even when you have insurance. And you had all of these services done and never once knew how much it was going to cost you. And then they could literally just
Yep.
charge you whatever they wanted to charge you. It still boggles my mind that we have allowed this system to be built. And that's why we love the doctors that are getting out of the system.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
that these DPC doctors, direct primary care,
Yep.
I think is a brilliant concept for so many people, and that are physicians and hospitals. There are surgery centers standing up across the United States that do not accept insurance.
Yeah,
They
I wanted to talk
work
to you
with
about
actual
that.
patients. Yes.
So I have an acquaintance. He's a friend. He's an online friend. We've never met in person, but his name is Dr. Keith Smith, and
Hmm.
he has a surgical center in Oklahoma, and he's a wonderful human, and he's got incredibly good metrics. Like, talk
Yeah.
to me about how that works. Do you work with places like that?
Oh, absolutely. So Oklahoma Surgery Center is almost, I would say, one of the pioneers of this in the United States. And Dr. Smith is absolutely amazing. They put on I say they have a free market medical society thing that puts on conferences regularly that is
Yep.
just chock full of such good information. But we love it when our members are eager to utilize these providers that want to do things differently, that want to really practice good medicine and provide amazing service for patients at a fair price. So we have members regularly travel to have their procedures done at these surgery centers.
Hmm.
The crowd is willing to help with their travel expenses. The crowd is willing to help with like a per diem so that they, all the little things that come with travel, your food and all that little extra expense that you don't even think about. But then you come home and you're like, wow, that was a little more expensive than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
The hotel, yeah, we're really eager to help members access amazing care even when they have to travel and support them in the cost of that. Oklahoma Surgical Center is one of the top, I would say, but there are surgery centers all over the US that are doing this now. So
It's so awesome. So one of the stories that I think Andy shared with me on the first time I ever talked to him was he was telling me this crazy story about someone who lived. I'm going to mess up the whole thing. So Andy, if you're watching this, just like fast forward, right? But they lived like in Minnesota or Missouri or somewhere that is not on the East Coast where
Mhm.
I know geography, and they had some sort of arrhythmia. Their heart was
Mhm.
beating irregularly,
Yep.
and they went to the ER like responsible humans, and the ER did what they were supposed to do. And they said, hey, you got to go to cardiology, and maybe you have to get this ablation, like where they take the naughty part of the heart and they like burn it off, and then it's not naughty anymore.
Mhm.
And anyway, so he's telling me like this member is like, young and healthy and whatever and doing the stuff. And then it was gonna cost something absurd, like $80,000 or
Yeah,
something,
something crazy. Yeah.
and
And I think
then right, he tells me this story and he's like, "Oh, so we like called around and like found some better options with like surgeons that we know are like
Mhm.
amazing and, facilities that we think are great. And we were like, hey, do you have any interest in maybe like going there and like, travel was maybe an issue or,
Mhm.
what have you? Like nobody likes to deal with TSA or the airport or any of these things.
Yeah.
And then Andy was like, yeah, but how about if I fly you like business class or first class?
Mhm.
And, we'll like take
Yeah.
care of everything. We'll put you up in a nice fancy room. And the dude was like, okay. Okay, I'll
Mhm.
do that. And
Yeah.
then he tells me, and I'm like, and I'm sitting there. So he's telling this story, and I'm sitting there the whole time, and I'm thinking, I'm never joining this thing. Like literally, you're just like pissing away like all this, like the crowd's money, like on this stuff. Like this doesn't sound like a good idea. And so then he gets to the end of his story, and it sounds like this person like went on vacation with their wife,
Mhm.
right? It was like a really cool story. And then he was like, oh, and the crowd ended up paying like with all of the bells and whistles like
Yeah.
$27,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And like the thought that this human could have an amazing
Mhm.
weekend with his wife and
Yes.
then get the exact same surgical procedure that he was going to get literally anywhere else,
Yep.
and that just because someone made some phone calls and he was willing to
Yeah.
be inconvenienced for a couple of hours, like that we saved $50,000.
Yeah.
Like it's
We actually,
insane.
it's crazy. We just had a member who needed a spinal surgery, and in
Okay.
his state, he was being quoted $70,000 for the physician in the facility. Anesthesia shouldn't have been, but a couple thousand. It wasn't in that price though, and so we called around and we found us. There's a brilliant spine hospital in Utah,
Okay.
um, and all in bundled physician, facility, anesthesia, everything was going to be $30,000. Like
Mm.
that's a massive difference. And so with the travel expenses, it still saved the crowd, probably $35,000.
Yeah.
And he actually ended up loving this other doctor way better than his doctor at home.
I'm
And of
sure
course,
he
he was
did.
resistant to travel at first, too. He was like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it took a minute, but he had a virtual consult with the physician at
Mhm.
the spine hospital. And it's like, oh, maybe I do like him, and was willing to give it a go. And he was just thrilled with the experience. So medical tourism is a very real thing. A lot
Yes.
of these hospitals are set up to receive patients from out of state. They have departments in their hospital that help people with the
Yep.
travel and the lodging. They have contracts with hotels close by where they can stay and easily get to the hospital for their follow-ups and everything. So yeah, it's an amazing opportunity that if you had insurance, you would just never know about.
Yeah,
That would
of
just
course,
never be
right?
an option.
And
Um,
back to these marketing wizards, right? Like medical tourism, like you think you're going like somewhere in a country that's, not developed and doesn't have running water and, getting a surgery in the back alley. You're like, no, it's a state of the art place in
exactly.
Utah that actually, was
Yes.
just built last year.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that is the reality in the same way that our next topic that I want to ask you
Okay.
about, but in the same way that prescription drugs
Mhm.
are just an opportunity
Yeah.
for insane savings.
I mean, people don't even, yeah, it's crazy. I know that you've done a whole episode on PBMs. I watched it. I loved it.
Oh, did you love it? She was great. And I was a little nervous because
She
I was
was
like, I
amazing.
love this woman, but
Yeah.
also she's a PBM insider.
Yeah.
Like, but she showed
She
up.
did. She did. She did a great job. I feel like she did a great job being honest. I would have been a little
Yep.
harder on them, but I understand her stance.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought that was a really, really interesting episode. I did.
Yeah.
Um, and you're so right. I mean, it's crazy all of the hands that are in the pot of
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals. It would be so easy if we could just blame it on big pharma, but it's not. It's all these middle things that
Yeah.
have gotten in the mix that keep, jacking up the price and making it
Yeah.
just unmanageable for Americans. I mean, I know that was, one of my mom's things when she was like, I can't retire until I can
Yeah.
get Medicare because like things are too expensive. Got to have my stuff, So,
Yes. And I
um,
mean, it's a real issue. So, talk to me a little bit about. I'm trying to think of
mhm.
of what disease I would like to invent for the next few minutes, right? But something like actually, this is a really good example, I think, for the purposes of our
Mhm.
discussion, but also really like unfortunate. But something like a cancer
Right.
diagnosis. Um,
So cancer is actually really easy. Okay.
okay,
Because, yeah, I
so,
mean,
okay, so I'm a crowd member,
right.
and I mean, not me, but someone is, right? They're a crowd member. They've been relatively healthy. They have some, I don't know, constipation. They go to the
Mhm.
doctor. Doctor says, "Ooh, actually, I, you have colon cancer. We're going to need
Mhm.
to do surgery, and we're recommending chemo, radiation,
Right.
whatever." Like, what does that look like?
All the things, yeah. So typically what it looks like is if chemo or radiation are recommended as part of your treatment plan, if you're working with a provider that is practiced in serving cash pay patients, they
Hmm.
are already going to have everything you need to apply for your prescription assistance programs. The manufacturers of these prescriptions, of these medications,
So, like Pfizer.
yeah, all the ones.
Okay.
Yeah. They have to provide a certain amount of their medicine as like charity care. They tend to have different programs. They don't all have the same requirements, right? They have different requirements for meeting their charity care program, but they can offer these medications at little to no cost to patients. We actually partner with a company that does all of the paperwork for our members if our members want to apply. Now, obviously, the members have to give them the information, but they will
Hmm.
do all the paperwork. They'll get everything submitted for you. They're an amazing company called RX Access, and so we help our members with that by offering this partnership. However, if your doctor's used to working with cash pay patients, they're going to have that there for you. They're going to help you. And they're going to get that. We have three cancer cases right now where all of the patients have qualified for these manufacturer assistance programs or prescription assistance
Yeah.
programs, all different things, and they are getting their cancer treatment at zero cost to them. The manufacturer ships it to the doctor. The doctor has it on site, administers it, and they're getting exactly what they need. They aren't having to use a different medication. Like they're getting to use the medication that is the best for their stage and diagnosis. They aren't having to forgo
Yeah.
treatment because it's too expensive. Let's say though that we had a member with cancer who did not qualify for one of these programs. That is what the crowd is for. That is
Mm.
what the crowd is for. Now, are we going to shop and make sure that you're getting it at the best cost possible? Absolutely. We're absolutely going to do that. But you will not have to choose like your example of the woman,
Yeah.
the urgent care. You will not have to choose between like actually getting the medication you need or letting the cancer do what it's going to do. Like
Yeah.
have the crowd support.
I love that. I mean, so just a quick follow-up question, because if I were watching this, this would be my follow-up question. This
Mhm.
would be the first thing I want to know. Like when my mom is a nurse.
Mhm.
And so she had a job, and she had a job that she made enough money to pay for her housing
Mhm.
and all of the things. So these programs, are they limited to people who aren't working, or like what do the income limits
Yeah,
look like?
it's going to be different, honestly, for every company. And it's even sometimes different per the medication, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
So maybe a super expensive medication would have a much higher
exactly.
income level. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which actually
So,
feels fair,
yeah, right. Right.
unlike a lot of things in medicine.
Exactly. Yeah. So they run the gamut. It's
Okay.
really dependent upon the company.
Okay.
But like I said, we have three people that have all qualified. We don't have that many cancer cases right now, thankfully. We have a very
Yes.
healthy crowd, but it's not uncommon, is my point that I'm trying to make. Like it's
Yeah.
many people qualify for these.
And really, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is it is the difference between free and $500.
Right.
Right? It's not like, oh, maybe it's $20,000 because that's how much my chemo is.
Exactly.
Can we talk about maternity real quick?
Yeah, let's talk about maternity. And this one, maternity is one of the biggest subgroups of medical care that the crowd helps each other with. We
Yep.
have a lot of babies on CrowdHealth, which I love. So we do treat it a little differently, right? The member commitment for a maternity is $3,000 versus the normal $500. And but that's all of your maternity care on one health event. So the crowd will even help with a doula. The crowd will help with a breast pump. The crowd will help with pelvic floor therapy after you deliver. Like
Nice.
it is very robust in terms of the support that you get from the crowd if you're going to have babies on Crowd Health. The important thing, though, is that if you're already pregnant, do not join Crowd Health because the crowd will not be able to help with your pregnancy if you're already pregnant before you
Yep.
join. So you want to make sure that you're not pregnant. You want to make sure that you're not, maybe pregnant.
Yep.
You want to make sure you're not pregnant and join. And then your due date does need to be 300 days after you join for your pregnancy to be eligible for crowdfunding.
Good to know. And I'm just assuming that you guys will help negotiate the cash pay price for the delivery
Yeah.
if they
So
choose to.
yeah, most physicians have a global fee, and we rarely come across physicians that are charging crazy prices. Believe it or not, OBs are
Awesome.
pretty standard. Now there are some areas, New York, California, where people go a little crazy, but for the most part, the OBs global fees are pretty standard, and we don't have to do a lot of shopping or negotiating. In terms of the hospital, typically, you just get the bill on the back end, and it's kind of like an ER visit where you send it to us, we review it, negotiate if necessary, and then the crowd helps you with paying that bill once it's at a fair price. So,
And then do you fund if someone chooses to have their baby at a birthing center or some
oh
other
yeah, we
sort
love
of.
birthing centers, home births.
Okay.
All the options are available for help from the crowd. Yeah,
Yep, I love it. And as someone who is done having babies,
same.
hopefully, I I actually kind of love that there's like I love seeing the babies.
Mhm.
I can't never going to complain about seeing the babies and they, parents send it to Andy and he posted on the crowd's social
Yeah,
media and it's wonderful.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's also like really nice for me that I don't feel like I'm always funding
yes,
everyone else's babies that they get to have because there is that little bit higher member
yeah,
commitment. And so
exactly.
it feels fair if you're not having the babies and you just want to look at the pictures,
Yeah,
as well as for the new parents.
exactly. I mean, honestly, if you have a high deductible insurance plan, you're probably paying $7,000 to have
Yeah.
your child. And that's if you don't have like copays or coinsurance like you were talking about.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, $3,000. It's pretty amazing to be able to have a baby for $3,000.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty
Yeah.
good. I'll take it.
Yeah.
And then the last question: what happens if we're talking about babies? What happens if someone has their baby a little early,
Mhm.
32 weeks, and baby needs to spend 6 weeks in the hospital? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
That's just a health event for the baby. So it's the $500
Mm,
member commitment. It's I say, oh, it's just a health event because obviously I'm in health events all day,
of
every day.
course,
So it feels very, very
you're
normal
in
for
you're in
me.
business of healthcare mode.
Yeah. Um, but all of the eligible bills will be sent for crowdfunding after they're negotiated down to a fair price. I will say, and this seems like common sense to me, but I'm going to say it just to be clear, like you do have to actually add your baby to your membership of Crowd Health. They have to be a
Okay,
member of Crowd Health themselves
sure,
for their bills to be eligible for crowdfunding. So, there are some times where um, mom she'll be on Crowd Health, but dad has his own insurance, right? And they choose to add baby to dad's
sure,
insurance. Well, then Crowd Health is not going to help with baby's bills because
sure.
the baby has to be on
That
on
seems reasonable.
but yeah.
All right,
But
and
if
then
anything happens,
I
we got you.
I know, spoken like a true operations master. Like, look here, I've sketched this all out.
Yeah.
Um, we were I've been in meetings all day and I haven't gotten a chance to read this email, but I
Yeah.
saw it come in and I scanned it and it made my heart warm and happy.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I really appreciate about being in this community is the Telegram group, Telegram,
Mhm.
that messaging app. Like all the
Yep.
members are on there, chatting about how to get the best care and take care of
Yeah.
themselves and their families. And, CrowdHealth staff is on there too. The
Mhm.
CEO participates regularly. But another sort of extension of that is that we do what we want.
Yeah.
And by we, I'm not speaking as an employee of CrowdHealth. I'm
Yeah.
speaking as a member of CrowdHealth. We
Right.
do what we want. So,
Yeah.
like, I can go to the CEO who I have access to
Mhm.
through this Telegram group,
Yep.
and I can say, "Hey, Andy, I'm having trouble with this and this. I'm
Mhm.
having like this situation." Or I can go to my care advocate and I can say, "I'm having this medical situation or this life situation. Like,
Yeah.
is there, something we can do about it?" And we have the flexibility because we're not this huge United Healthcare
Mhm.
to do what we want. And so,
Yeah.
anyway, so tell me about this email that I haven't had a chance to read because I have a feeling I'm going to be really excited about it.
Well, I think this is one of the special things about CrowdHealth. There's a lot of special things about
There
CrowdHealth.
really
I
are.
think this, yeah, I think this one in particular is really special. So we have a family on CrowdHealth who just adopted a little girl. Let me see. She is from Africa and she's 3.
She's
And she is just the cutest thing. There's a picture in the email. She's absolutely the cutest thing. So once a child is 3 years old on Crowd Health, they transition over to the $300 per year annual wellness event, right? So for any of their preventive care, once they're 3, they have up to $300 per year to use for a preventive service of their choosing. Well, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, I don't know, maybe this is fortunately, but they need some preventive care for her that is pretty standard when you bring
Mhm.
someone back from Africa, particularly bring back an adoptee from Africa. It's quite a bit of testing. It's at a very specific hospital facility that's for, adoptees from other countries. And it
Which
is
totally makes sense, right?
yeah,
Like maybe they want to, test this child for certain things or do certain treatments
exactly,
or whatever, that it would be
exactly.
specific for like international travelers.
Yes. And it is well over the $300 that they have toward an annual visit
Mm.
for her, right? To use as part of their membership.
Hmm.
And so what we've done is we've asked the crowd if they want to help above and beyond what they're giving to other members as part of their membership. This is what I think is so beautiful. Like it's not, this money isn't coming through Crowd Health. These members are letting us give their Venmo information and other members are free to help them out if they want to or not.
Hmm.
Absolutely no strings attached. We just presented the information. And this is the second time we've done this year. There was another family earlier this year that just had a group of really unfortunate things kind of hit all at once.
Yeah.
And one was a really serious medical situation of one of the family members and a job loss. And it was just unfortunate. And
Hmm.
so did the same thing, asked the crowd for help. And they just received so much love and support from the people in the crowd. And so we've asked the same thing for this sweet family so that they, can get the
Yeah.
testing that they need done for her.
And get
Uh,
to enjoy their little one.
yes,
I love
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
I think I mean, it's a great place to end, but it really speaks to what I actually think we need in healthcare, right? And I think a lot of us are recognizing. I recently we also interviewed a social worker who had worked in the ER, and we were talking through her specialty is helping employers sort of set up different social plans for their employees so that like they know where to invest money.
Mhm.
And so like she's not at all incentivized to say that social programs are not the answer, right? And she said, "Look, social programs of course can be helpful, but you know what's the most helpful? Like a factor of 10 more helpful than any social program we will ever find. It's the community. It's checking in on your people. It's knowing that people care about you. And
Yep.
it's not just being on the receiving end.
Right.
Like this family, it's wonderful that they're going to get help for something,
Mhm.
but I would bet that the net good that comes out of this initiative isn't for that family.
Right.
It's for the human who feels completely disconnected from, their loved ones and everything in life, and then has like, of course I have $50 that I'm going
Yes.
to give to this family
Yep.
so that they can love their daughter the way I love mine, right? Like, of course. And I just think it's such a gift,
Mhm.
and it's something that, people get, maybe from church, or they get maybe from different organizations, but some people maybe aren't going to church, or they, don't visit a, religious
Mhm.
place or group or community or people like them, and they're lonely or whatever it is. But
Yep.
I just think it's like it's such a cool use
Yep.
of this community. And like who would think that health insurance could be like how you do your good? And I know Crowd Health isn't health insurance, right? But like,
Yep.
who would think that this financial product
Right.
that you have like put into your life so that you feel better about being
Mhm.
able to pay for your healthcare could provide that for you?
Right. It's amazing. And this being able to help this family is amazing. And it's like the icing on the cake, because the reality is every month we are giving to other members, and we know what we're helping them with. We know where they live. We don't know who they are because we are HIPAA compliant, but
Yeah.
like we see the reality of our dollars helping other people every single month. And then we also see the community getting to come together in situations where the member guide doesn't allow us to support them,
Yeah.
but we can still support them. So yeah,
Yeah.
community. It's the crowd. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I love that, right? And if you don't like 3-year-old baby girls and you don't want to participate, then you just don't have to, right?
Exactly
Like I love
right.
that. The
Yes.
crowd adheres to the contract.
Yep.
It's clear what I'm
Hmm.
paying for. It's absolutely transparent. I actually pay way less than I have signed my name on the dotted line to do, because our members are so good at shopping for healthcare. And like, you don't have to participate. And I
Don't.
just love it.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed.
So thank you so much for coming on and for tolerating all my questions and interruptions. And we
I
just
loved it.
enjoyed having you.
I loved it. It's been great.
This has been the Healthcare Liberty Lab. Thank you to our listeners and our sponsor, CrowdHealth, for making this possible. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, be it Substack, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or somewhere else. We're glad to have you with us on this mission to rethink healthcare together.